Okay, so here's the engine bay of the Miata. There's no engine in it, the transmission's still in it. So we're going to begin, now that we have everything done on the engine that we need to do for it to get into the car, is we need to start modifying the car to accept the engine. So we're going to start out with, since I'm not running power steering in the new setup, I'm going to start out with by removing the power steering rack. Oh yeah. Alright, so here's the power steering rack outside of the car. It's still got the power steering pump still attached to it. But this is what it looks like outside of the car. This is what this looks like without it in it. That's just bending that. Dude, that's sick. Dude. So the first order of business for modifying the car to accept the Ecotec engine is going to be cutting a notch into the transmission right about here so that the Ecotec starter can clear the transmission and drive the flex plate properly and start the car. Alright, so I have the transmission adapter on the transmission. The adapter comes with the Ecotec MIATA kit. So you can see right here where the starter is going to sit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your marker and mark right there, and then up here where you're going to need to cut. You can see right there where I marked it. Now you're just going to go to town on that with an angle grinder. Alright, so here's the angle grinder, just going to cut into that notch. So next, to make your life a little easier when you're installing the engine, and so it clears the new oil filter and the cooling system, you're going to want to cut the frame rail right about here. You don't have to take too much off of it, but just enough so that it'll clear. So you're going to once again use your trusty angle grinder and just go to town on it. Alright, so we got the frame rails cut here and here, and then we have the notch cut in the transmission here. So now the engine should bolt up nicely to the transmission and shouldn't interfere with the frame rails. Make sure you paint those so they don't rust. You don't have to worry about painting the transmission because it's aluminum. But that's what that looks like. Not the prettiest, but it'll be functional. You're going to want to replace your throwout bearing too while you're down here. Here's the old one. Here's your new one. Next, you're going to want to remove your gas pedal assembly. So this assembly has both your brake pedal and your gas pedal on it. You're going to be modifying this to go from drive-by cable to drive-by wire. Now we're going to modify the original pedal assembly. See, here's the brake pedal, here's the original gas pedal. The original gas pedal originally had a throttle cable right here, so it was drive-by cable. The new throttle body that we have is an electronic throttle body, so we need to have drive-by wire. So luckily for us, we have this Cadillac CTS gas pedal right here, which is going to send signal to the ECU using these wires, and then that's going to actuate our throttle body. So now we have to modify this bracket right here to accept this bracket right here, so we have this pedal instead of this pedal. So I'm going to do some cutting and weld that to that. Alright, so just using an angle grinder, I cut this part of the original pedal assembly off, and now I'm going to weld the new bracket to this. Alright, so here is the bracket completed and welded. My welds aren't pretty, but they're functional. This thing isn't going anywhere. So this is what it looks like when it's all welded. And now here's what the pedal looks like installed into the bracket. So this is the new electronic throttle cable. So this is what this looks like now. This is ready to be reinstalled in the car. Here's the new gas pedal all installed. You can see I have everything buttoned back up except for the panel that goes here. But you can see here's the brake pedal, here's the new drive-by-wire gas pedal. Clears everything, doesn't rub on anything. That's how it looks up in there. At this point, you're going to install the transmission adapter. In order to install it, you're going to use these bolts. And notice there are two different lengths. You have two shorter ones and three longer ones. Now would be a good time to remove any of the locator pins on the back of the engine where the transmission attaches. So you're going to put it up to the engine just like this. You're going to put the two shorter bolts right here and right here. The three longer ones go here, here, and here. Make sure you use a washer and a nut with each of these. Now you're going to want to torque them to 40 foot-pounds. Alright, so those are all torqued down now. Next up, you're probably going to want to put the engine in the car. Make sure you remove the clutch alignment tool before you put the engine in the car, or things aren't going to line up right. You're going to have a bad time. Alright, so here's what the engine looks like inside the car. There's only a few bolts that hold it to the transmission, and in the instruction manual it tells you exactly what to do for that. I have the motor mounts bolted to the subframe, so that's what the engine looks like inside the car. Now you're going to want to work on wiring. And wiring is probably going to be the biggest task for this engine swap, and it's not that bad. It's a good idea to look at the wiring schematics for both the car that you got the engine from and the MIATA. For the engine management, I'm going to be using an E67 ECU from a Pontiac Solstice. This came out of the same car as my Ecotec engine. For the body harness, I'm going to be using the Ecotec MIATA patch harness that they have for sale on their website. And I'm just going to start out by running these wires into the cab in the hole in the firewall where the throttle cable originally went. Alright, so this is inside the car now, down where the pedals are. You can see these are the wires from the patch harness. I've assembled the OBD2 port so you can hook it up to a scanner and read codes. I've assembled the gas pedal pigtail, and then what's left to do is I have to run this to a constant power, and then these go to different things such as the fuel pump and the fan relay and stuff like that.
My sink was clean.
Okay, so yeah, wiring the car is a pretty big job. I've gotten it to the point up here where the car could possibly run if I decided to crank it over. And then inside, I have stuff going on down in here for the fuel pump. Then over there I have the malfunction indicator light wiring going on. It's just kind of a mess right now. You're going to need to change your fuel filter out from the stock one to a Corvette one. So here's the old fuel filter from the MIATA. You can see the fuel was originally sent through here, went through the filter, came out, went to the fuel rail, and then there's a separate return line that came back. So here's your new Corvette fuel filter. This is the same fuel filter that a lot of your LS swaps are going to use. you just have a send and a return right here. They both go into it, and then you only have one that comes out and goes to the fuel rail. So this is significantly different than this system. Alright, so here's how I have the fuel filter set up. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see I use the stock hard lines that went into a rubber hose, then into a quick connect fitting, comes out the other side of the fuel filter, goes to a little elbow, and then runs up the transmission tunnel. Still a little bit messy right now. You can see it's just hanging down, but I'm going to secure it up there. So you can see I have it running up the side of the transmission tunnel, comes over to the fuel rail, got another elbow quick connect, and then see right here, these are going to be cut down to fit better, but this is just so I can test the car, make sure it runs, and before I start tidying everything up. See the brake booster, it's just fuel line, but I wanted something that isn't easily collapsible because it's going to be pulling a vacuum. Goes under the intake manifold. See over here, there's the 1320 Performance Polaris Slingshot Performance header. I found, and a lot of people recommend this, I found it's the best, one of the best applications for this because it clears everything and then you can easily get your exhaust down there. Not easily, but more easy than if you had something bigger.